You can't just be the left-wing show or the right-wing show. You can't. You've got to appeal to everything. So the Doctor is simultaneously a complete pacifist, absolutely against war, and works for a military organisation. The Doctor is a habitual revolutionary who's very clear that he's in charge. He can style himself a man of the people all he wants in his sort of hippie John Pertwee way, but he is really expecting someone to get him tea. He's always starting a fight. He's frankly, he's a peace-loving man who wanders the universe looking for trouble.
Discuss the Doctor Who thing a bit more. The Radio Times supposed debunking of the thing, you need to look a little carefully at that. It's saying there is no truth to the rumors of Chris Chibnall quitting. That's not what the rumor is. The rumor is that he was fired. It's a whole other thing. And in this case, because the way the BBC operates, it would be fired. It would not be promoted into irrelevance like with Kurtzman. It would be sacking. Because the BBC operates quite differently than CBS or anything else. And what we're hearing makes a lot of sense, because the BBC, for all their pomposity, they have a certain mandate to manage the people's licensing fees properly, and that means trying to show something, not necessarily a profit, but at least they're not wasting money. And that goes into license, the merchandising, licensing. And there's fewer middlemen involved with licensing BBC goods, because a lot of it are sold by the BBC themselves. So they have a better idea of what will sell and will not. And that's why I think we're getting a little quicker blowback regarding apparently Chibnall wanted to do a female Dalek, even more than what we saw in that New Year's special. Oh, now it's by that last pseudo Dalek. This was going to be one very misshapen thingamajig, and what the Beeb just wanted was another Dalek with a different paint job. Okay, so, and again, they're not stupid. They read the audience responses too. They actually do a little better job of see what goes over well and what people like and what they don't like. And they know this did not go over well. They can do all the happy talk they want, but they know this is not well received. So I imagine he would be on a very short leash. And there have been some statements before they'd only do like a couple of seasons, and both of them be out. So it wouldn't be that online. Well, you're leaving anyway, Chib was over, so yeah, leave now. I mean, stranger things have happened, folks. Look at the way they handle poor Colin Baker, okay? And I think it was trying to avoid a situation like that, because he refused to come back and do his regeneration scene. So they had to put poor Sylvester McCoy in that suit. And Sylvester McCoy is a lot smaller than Colin Baker, okay? And not just girth. He just, Colin Baker's probably 6 footer. And Sylvester McCoy is more my size. So they kind of lost him inside that suit for a couple of days. And put a blonde wig on him and flip one over and finish the regeneration. But yeah, it's figured not everyone at the BBC is a diversity hire. Right, yeah, picture stuck on it. This kind of goes. Things are starting to turn on these franchises. They're starting to realize this ain't working. These supposed new audience members are not coming, and we're only pissing off the old guard and undercutting our base. So yeah, you got to look at the things. The Radio Times ain't exactly the Times, okay? So, and again, you just look carefully at that article though. It's like it's basically who's the insiders you're gonna trust, theirs or ours? Because on our side, they got very specific things, okay, reasons why this is happening, and their side just pish posh. It's very little resemblance to reality. Not no resemblance to reality, but very little. Okay. That's not a denial, okay? That could be the difference of Chibnall, agreeing it's best to, probably best to cut ties and go now, than wait till the end of the series, And instead, maybe Jodie, instead of being forced to do regeneration, just, okay, let's do a regeneration, I'm out of here. Subtleties, Doesn't mean it's not true. Okay? And also, kind of interesting that Moffat feels comfortable kind of throw everybody under the bus. You can't just be the left wing show or the right wing show. It has to be for everybody. But yeah, we've got some very specific things coming out, and a lot of it could be just very well-informed fanboys who think, okay, if this happens, then we can do this, and and let's have a dream team. Everybody comes back except for Chibnall, and writes the Christmas special, or the 60th anniversary. Keep in mind, the 60th anniversary is not until 2023. Okay, that's still 4 years out. The scary part is it's only been, it's been 6 years since the 50th. God, we're getting old. When the years start slamming by like that, it's like, boy. So, yeah. I get the feeling, there's probably more truth to this than they're letting on. I think they are starting to get the loggerheads on that. Again, with the BBC, it's like, it's not just merchandise is not just extra capital in there. That is, that's so they don't have to raise license fees. That goes straight into production, into funding more programming. Is licensing stuff. They operate a little differently than, because one, there's no advertisements. They have no ad revenue at all. In fact, they're very strict about anything that's perceived as an ad. And there was a mini series, Oz and James Drink to Britain, or James May and Oz Clarke are going around Britain trying to find the quintessential drink that signified Britain at large, in general. And when they're in Ireland, they had to be, very careful about, referring to Guinness. Matter of fact, that in Ireland, it's Guinness or it's forget it. It's either Guinness or whiskey. So they had to say, because of the BBC restriction on advertising, we have to watch how many times we say the G word. Like they made a bit of a game out of it. Every time someone, from that point on, no one slipped up and said the word Guinness, they had to cough up a euro. So, but yeah, so it's part of the operating thing is how much merchandise they can sell, and the Whittaker stuff is not selling. Okay, little boys, unless they're doing a 13 Doctors episode of their own, they're not going to go clamoring for a Jodie Whittaker doctor. They're sure as hell not going to be wearing the shirt. Whereas, like Gary pointed out, a lot of girls will happily cosplay the male doctors. He saw a half dozen Capaldi, females doing Capaldi. I've seen a few do Pete David Tennant. I mean, granted, this is back during a time when it's like there was no other option. There was no female doctor. But there were variations on this. Chloe Dykstra doing kind of a mini skirt version of the Matt Smith doctor with a little itty bitty fez on top. So there's things you can play around with there, but yeah, it's not going to work the other way. You're not going to have guys, at least not very many, cosplaying as Jodie Whittaker's doctor, even as androgynous as that outfit is. As for the larger issues of the overall rumor about who's going to be coming in next, I really like the idea of Neil Gaiman as the showrunner, because he's a fan. He's written a couple episodes, okay? He knows the show. And Michael Sheen. He has got the personality to be perfect for the Doctor. And he's also friends with David Tennant. I'm sure I think he may have done a Doctor Who. I didn't look into that. But I'm sure he get a vote of confidence from David Tennant. And again, I mean, Neil Gaiman, he's running the, whatever, the Good Omens with the two of them. So, and by that mark, it wouldn't be hard to get Ted to come back for another little multi-doctor story. That's the thing, a multi-doctor story, and then we could have fun with that, okay? Because now we got a passel of doctors. If they could somehow convince Chris Eccleston, one, you gotta give him something more than just, hi, I'm the Ninth Doctor. And I think they did come close with the War Doctor story, because it was originally going to be the Ninth Doctor, and I'm sure Moffat had the idea that if that doesn't work, we got to throw somebody in between there, and have he doesn't count. But he did, But yeah, what the last bit, like on Doomcock's report, that's kind of a dream team situation right there, and if it happens, great. Then that would be probably the one thing that would turn everything around and bring the fans back, is if you get Neil Gaiman to run it and you got someone like Michael Sheen as the Doctor. That would be because that's the only way you're going to do a total, and the show's equipped to do that, to do just a total flip. Okay, it's a soft reboot, really. The continuity stays the same, but you shake things up, and new Doctor, new showrunner, and you still got the canon to play with too. Although again, Doctor Who canon is, like Terrence Dicks said, if I'm the showrunner, canon is what I remember at any given time. So it's always been a little amorphous. And because of the timey-wimey nature of it, you can play a little bit, because, things change. And you can just, because of a Time Lord's, sensitivity to the time flows, he can keep track of it all. So, let us consider this possibly the opening gun in turning things around. The first really big turnaround. There's been a few other indicators, like, they're starting to come around a little bit on Star Wars, but there's too many things in motion to turn on a dime. You got Ghostbusters 3, properly Ghostbusters, zooming back away from that particular cliff. Star Trek is going to be trickier because of the Kurtzman contract. You got to back out of that. But things are turning on that, apparently. The only thing left, really, is could be in trouble as far as going off a cliff is going to be the comics industry and the movies that go with them. So, yeah. Comics themselves, as an art form, they'll keep going. People will publish their own. They've been doing something drawn on caves. Those are cartoons, really. Break it down. Hieroglyphics, in the pyramids. The industry, I think, is due for a major, curtailing. I think waiting for somebody to finally get a brain surgery. How about if we cut prices? Because that's what's keeping me on right now. It's like $2 or $3 for an issue. Forget it. I mean, there was a breaking point. It was only $1. You're doing like $2, $3, $4, $5 for just a regular issue for being preached to for crap I don't agree with. No, okay. It's gonna take, I think, some old timers getting in there who knew how the thing's supposed to run and how to foster the thing. And one thing also is get the comics back on the spinner racks and the newsstands. Stop being so damn married to the direct market, because the direct market is what's strangling right now, because nobody wants to go to a comic shop. They don't have to. But you find it a spinner rack at 7-Eleven or on the newsstand at the local grocery store. There's a sale right there. You get them on next to the checkout stand. That's where you start making your sales, and you get people back into it. They're trying that with Walmart, I think, but I haven't seen it very prominently. They got it kind of hidden off in the corners next to the Pokemon cards. They got to get a lot more prominent. But it wasn't that long ago I was buying a lot of my comics from 7-Eleven. Second they abandoned the newsstand, it's like, that's it. That's why it's places like Mile High Comics and Gary's going to do with the Nerd Erotic. No more new comics. Or very few. It's all going to be, how the industry started in the first place was back issues. That's what, them selling new issues was a fairly new thing. They started off, they were doing all back issues, and collections. So that should pretty well, I think, get some chatting going on. So, you want to send me stuff? Captain Robert April, 4046 North Goldenrod Road, number 115, Winter Park, Florida, 32792. And direct support, PayPal, Patreon, etc., down below. And we will talk at you later.
There'll be further comment on the budget in the evening news at 5:40, and the Chancellor of the Exchequer will be interviewed in the Tonight programme at 11:15 this evening. And now on BBC One, we're joining the Pink Panther.